afternoon. My name is Don Andersen, class of 1948, the Englewood School for Boys. At that time, we were quite a cocky bunch. We thought we were very good because our football team was undefeated that year. But unfortunately, we had about 4 ties. And we couldn't match the record of 1947. Because in 1947, we went undefeated and only had 6 points scored against us the whole year. And unfortunately, that 6 points happened over my head with a long pass against Dwight-Englewood High School. That went for 6 points. But little did we know that the best was yet to come. There was a fellow in our school named Dick Button. We didn't know him. I didn't know him personally much because he kept coming and going away to skate and coming back for some studies and things. But he came back in 1948, and the end of 48, in the spring of 48, we were told that he had won the world championship for men's figure skating. Well, nobody could believe it. And he came back and we all cheered, we all hollered, we all shook his hand. And then that afternoon, we were told that, well, let's go downtown because there's going to be a parade for him with the keys to the city. So we all walked down Palisade Avenue, and my God, there was thousands of people down there, all milling around. And Dick, of course, was in a car, I think, top down, and he received the keys to the city. After that occasion, back at the school, Dick showed up. And my friend Doug Hicks, who's now deceased, they lived in 101 North Woodland Street. He said, look, and I have a big house with a big basement. We can go up there and have a party. So we went up to Doug's house, bunch of men, with Dick Button, and we celebrated his victory among just the boys in the school. You know, that was part of the occasion.
There were girls there.
I didn't know that.
I knew that because there were no lights on.
Oh, gosh. But you know, as things went on, Dick continued to skate. He won 5 world championships. He won about 2 or 3 gold medals in the Olympics. He went on and skated in various events around the world. And honestly, he became what is today considered the best ice skater the world has ever seen. He actually invented 2 or 3 jumps that men had never completed before, and he did them most successfully. You know, Dick, it's been 70 years. Can you imagine that? 70 years since those fun days we had down in boys' school with the boys. It's been 70 years since you accomplished all those things. And we're honored to have you here today. I take great pleasure in introducing to you Dick Button.
I'm delighted to see it, and thank you very much. Very good.
Good luck.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, sir, for you know, it has been indeed 70 years since I've been here on the campus, and I've got to tell you, it has changed. I couldn't even find my way around to the parking spot that was behind this hall. And all I can tell you is that we were in the class of 1947. If you remember correctly, it came up right after the Second World War, 2 years after the Second World War was over and peace was announced. It was an extraordinary period of time. And you know something? I'm not sure that I like today's time very much better. Although it was, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't walk across the street in the middle of traffic. We had bicycles. We had maybe the start of a computer, of a television set. And certainly no, we even went by boat back and forth to Europe. It was a different world. And I must tell you, one of my favorite stories about it was of the headmaster at that time, Marshall Umpleby. I have to tell you a story about Marshall Umpleby. He was a delight. He both looked and acted the part of the quintessential movie star headmaster. He had a frayed tweed jacket, leather elbows, and a pipe. And of course, when in 1943, my first year in 1942, I think it was my first year at ESB, and I shall never be able to call it DE, Dwight-Englewood, because embedded in my mind is the Englewood School for Boys. So forgive me if I refer to it as that. At any rate, my parents made me ask him, my first year here, my parents made me speak to him, to ask him time off to go into a competition called the Middle Atlantic Novice States Figure Skating Championship. And remember, I was 13 or 12 or 13 at that point. And I don't know, I said, why don't you ask him? And they said, no, you have to ask him. Well, thank God I did, because he was the most delightful guy. He said, you want to do what? I said, I want 5 days off in order to go into the Middle Atlantic States Novice Championship. 5 days. He said, he didn't say no. He said, he did say, to do what? And you've got to remember that in 1944, nobody knew what figure skating was. It wasn't an existing sport. It wasn't a solid sport and a major sport. It was in the Olympics before that and after that. However, he said, wait a minute. And he went out the office and he said, before he answered, he said to his secretary, show me Dick Button's marks. Now remember, there were 6 courses and 60 was passing. I had 5 60s and a 61. He said to me, you want a week off? I want 70s. So there was no problem with that. I got in the 70s, I got the week off. The next year, I said, Mr. Umpleby, to do this really right, I'm going into the national championship, and to do it right, could I have 2 weeks? He said, I want 80s. By the time I got up to my senior year, I said, look, Mr. Umpleby, I'm going on to the World Championship in Sweden, and that will be the Olympics of the following year when I will take off. He said, how much time do you need? I said, to do it really right, I need from Christmas till April. He said, take it, we'll get you into any college you want to go to. You know, what he was saying in essence was, do something that you like. And I tried to urge my kids to do professions that they like. Now, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But they're happy doing what they want. I always felt that if you spend 8 hours working at a job that you don't like, you won't be a good professional in that job. And secondly of all, if you only spend 8 hours concentrating on that job, which you don't like, you will never be a great person in that field. So I always urge them, because I found that with skating, for example, that I would sleep with it and 24 hours, 7 days a week. And sorry I'm so hoarse. You see, the reason was I was so nervous about coming here today because it's been 70 years since that time. Good God. And I remember in 1943, Marshall Umpleby, that rat house, that rat face. I complimented him, now I'm taking it back. He arranged with my parents for the entire class to come into the New York Skating Club and see me skate. Well, I was so nervous, as I am today, that I got hoarse and I couldn't speak a word. So that's why you're hearing this terrible guttural voice, which I apologize for. It was a different world. We lived in, we worked and had classes in the rear building, behind the main building in front. I didn't even look to see if that building was here. It's not. And is the horse farm still here? I mean, the stables. We had school, and of course, nobody ever, there were only 12 boys in my class. And it was 2 years after the Second World War, and most kids went off to other schools before that. My brothers had gone to Choate and a few other private schools elsewhere, but my parents figured that there was no other school that would understand what I was trying to do, which was ice skate. And I do remember Bruce LaSala and Roy Bowe and Jerry Robbins, and Don and Pearl Bernhardt, who is still with us today. He lives down in Annapolis in Florida, and so many interesting kind of people. And I must tell you something about them. They were better athletes than I was. It's just that I could skate. Nobody else knew anything about skating, and they didn't know what they were watching. If you take a look at that film there, and Don, you turned around and said that was advanced skating. That's in the Black Ages, the Dark Ages. There isn't a skater. That competition, that performance, wouldn't get through the novice championship today. Everybody is doing quadruples, and how many quadruples can you do? And they're doing points and arms and movements like this. It's a different world in skating, like it's a different world in the rest of the world that we're living in. It kind of is an interesting phenomenon, how much everything has changed. It has changed as much, not only the world of skating, but the world of education and the world of Dwight-Englewood. And skating has changed in the past 70 years. And sometimes I think it's quite marvelous, and sometimes I think I certainly think that skating in those days, to keep it down to a pointless argument, that skating in those days was more fun and more pleasure to watch, because the music was more important. There weren't a point system for every single move that you make. If you tinked your head, you got another point. if you bend over and put your fanny up in the air in a spin, you get still more points. So I liked it better. Those were the days when figure skating, this recently happened, the last 10 years, when figure skating was reorganized by a speed skater. Now, see, the sport of skating has two sports, speed skating and figure skating. And if I'm talking too long, please let me know. Figure skating and speed skating. Speed skating is all about measurement of time. Measurement, measurement, measurement. Do you get over the line first? Don't you get over the line first? It doesn't matter how you do it. Figure skating has two elements, both technical merit and creative impression, theoretically. And this guy, his name was Ottavio Cinquanta, and he was the head of the International Skating Union, which controlled our sport. He did not have the brains that Marshall Umpleby had. Marshall Umpleby would have said, you guys develop it. You push it the way that you think it should be. But it was right at the 2002 Winter Olympics, if you remember then in Salt Lake, when the enormous scandal erupted between the French judge complaining that she had been pressured by her president and the Russian pair and the Canadian pair. So they decided, see, Ottavio Cinquanta wanted more than anything else to be a permanent member of the International Skating Union. You're automatically a member when you're the head of the ISU, a governing body of a particular sport, but you're not automatically a head when you retire from that position. He wanted to be a permanent position of the Olympic Committee, and as a result, he did everything that they told him to. Solve the problem now. Don't wait a week. They said, solve it today. We can't do anything about it until until Monday. Yeah, oh yes, he said, oh yes, you can. Solve it today. And he knew what handwriting was on the wall, so he solved it by making it now so many points that you can't see straight. And I'm dribbling on here, so I'm sorry that I'm getting too technically involved in the roller skating. Let me just tell you that it is absolutely wonderful to see you all here, to be back in this, even if it's been 70 years. And I have every memory that ever existed of my time here. And I have every memory of Marshall Umpleby and the excitement that everybody had with allowing me to do what I liked to do. And of course, I repaid for that by getting him a thing. A minor aside, I applied to Yale. I was accepted. I took a year off. And there was a guy who was the administrator, student administrator, whatever his name was, whatever the title was. And he was the one I reported to. And my father said to me, Dick, it was April. I think you better just go up to New Haven and check in and tell them that it's not slipping between the cracks in the floor and that you're coming in the fall. So I went there, and his name was Dean Buck. Again, the perfect name. He was a bull if there ever was one. And he said, well, what are you going to do about your skating? And I said, well, I only need 4 days to go to Vienna to compete in the World Championship. He said, you've got to understand one thing. When you come here, you've got to study or you can skate. You can't do both. I walked out, I got on the phone, I called my father, and I said, Dad, I'm not coming back to New York, I'm on the train to Boston. And I walked in and I saw Dean Robert Watson, who was the Dean of Admissions. And I said, Mr. Watson, do you think I can get in? He said, Dick, you know very well that you can get in. I said, otherwise I wouldn't be able to go home to dinner tonight. And then I remembered that his wife was Polly Blodgett, she was the national junior pair champion. These are things that I call serendipity. serendipitous happenings, which was once written by Mr. Marlowe as the art of finding something unusual and unexpected in unusual situations. I found that moment with Marshall Umpleby, and I find it today seeing all of you and thanking you for this marvelous gift.